Hello and welcome to this private kitchen roundtable discussion. Marieke de Bruijn, Allard, Buwalda and Jeroen de Rijk. Today we will be talking about being a session musician. My name is Ivo Witteveen, I'm a composer and music producer and I'm the host of this panel. What does an ideal session look like? What do you need from a composer, producer, technician?
One thing that I think is very important, and I think that could very well go for the three of us, also your section, by the way, because I'm a standalone guy, basically, is that, if you cannot make it that day, they postpone the session for you. So they change the studio date to have you in. Then it's about you. Mm-hmm. That's on a personal level, that helps me.
For playing string instruments, it makes a big difference what is prepared by the producer for us to hear. Sometimes we have difficult scores for films, but usually it's not that hard. What makes it hard is not having a good backtrack to play on. We need very little information. Usually we turn it down only to a click. At least we can hear each other and play rhythmically and in tune. But when there's being thought of what is a good key to play in for string players, what can I offer to hear? Not too much information, and that's very difficult for producers to know and to balance that. So you have to, sometimes takes a lot of time in the beginning of a session to get that sorted out so we can play. What makes it also very important is in the string arrangements that there is some kind of knowledge about how to get a good string session built up. For example, you know how overtones work, and if you know what to double, not to double thirds. In the 60s, 70s, where whole orchestras were playing scores for films or playing pop songs, there was an orchestra. So there were orchestrators who knew how to write for an orchestra and get this string session sound really, really good. When we're playing MIDI strings where somebody on a keyboard goes like, this is nice, okay, this is nice, this is nice, and then you write that down and you have all this parallel fifth to play, which is really difficult for strings to play all this fifth in tune. So
So the arrangement is important.
Preparation is everything.
Yeah, but this is preparation by the arranger or the composer.
But it's all based upon decisions that are made somewhere in the production.
Yeah.
Some record company executives should understand that if they get, strings or horns or whatever arranged, they have it done by somebody who actually knows what he or she is doing. Throw in some money to get that done and then get, a good studio. All those decisions are management sort of decisions. I remember, one of the musical heroes who sold millions of albums 30, 40 years ago. They would put a budget up to have the rhythm section rehearsed for 3 weeks before they went into the studio. We've recorded 8 albums in 3 weeks by now. Basically, this is about budgets,
Can we talk a bit about communication with, let's say, composer or producer is the guy leading the session here. Then you have a discussion about whether it was right, whether things need to change. And also, when you record at home, there might not be like the live guidance of a producer. How does it work then?
There's a huge difference here between hiring me as a standalone guy. It would be as if Allard is only hired to play one saxophone solo. And then you can bounce it back and forth. You can do a little video call. You can send an example. Once it's a team effort, as in a string section or a horn section, then it's a whole different game. So I really think there's a difference between, in this case, me as a standalone guy and the people who play in sections.
When I do home recording, I play the lines and I send the bounce, and then they say, okay, this is right, or maybe you can do this again, or I wanted more of this or that.
Yeah. Does it lead to extra work?
Yeah, it takes me longer to do that than when I'm in the studio. Yeah. When the arrangement is really good, then 5 songs, at least 4 songs we can do in one session, and then you have it there. It's all done, the work for the producer. So,
but you don't need to think. You don't need to worry about your recording levels. You don't need to worry about where your mic is. Well, there's people who take care of that. And at home you're responsible for everything.
For me, it's a little bit different. I think when I have to play a solo, I deliver always 3 solos. One with a simple melody, because I learned early days not too many notes. Oh, it has not to be jazz, and I like that. So
Jazz!
too many notes. So I play a sort of simple line, and then I do a couple of takes which I like myself. The benefits are that I can deliver them when I think they're good. My experience is when I play a solo in the studio and I see me play and he goes for it. Wow, it's really great. And it's okay. Let's have lunch.
Yeah.
But I want to do 5 takes more because I can play a sort of solo in 1 or 2 takes and you can use that.
Yeah.
But I can also go further for myself and make a little story of the solo.
Yeah.
And when you're live in the studio, they don't have patience.
Yeah, we need to record the string section in 5 minutes.
No, it's sometimes we're there and nothing is right, and they're going over and over again, and no again, and giving no feedback.
Yeah.
So feedback is very important. You don't have the control. The control is in the control room. So you want to hear some kind of good or all right or yes. Specific feedback is very important. But just saying, okay, do it again.
Yeah. When we play with a horn section, most of the time the trombone guy is arranging for us.
Yeah.
And that helps a lot.
Yeah.
And everything is okay.
As a producer, you should either be you should know what you're doing when you're arranging, or you could hire someone like Jel or a string arranger to arrange for you.
That saves time.
Perhaps say that it's important to know what you want from a session, what you want to achieve. You can give like specific feedback when you're not happy yet with a take, and what it's about, what needs to change, what you would like differently.
Well, I guess it boils down to experience. Producers can be very insecure too, and you're suffering for their insecurity. So that's why they make you play things 5 times while it was right the first time.
Yeah.
Sometimes a producer has done a lot of work in a certain style of music, and then they change to funk or they change to, French chansons or whatever, and then they don't know what they're doing. Then they're insecure, and then they want to try it 25 times. Sometimes they're okay until a record company executive walks into the studio. So this is all part, of the freelance existence. That on a musical level for us as actual performers, it goes from heaven to hell and back, and thank God it's in heaven too quite often, or it's in the middle somewhere. If you're working in construction, the project developer is not always the perfect person, but sometimes it is. We need to cope with that and still deliver the best we can. A producer or in a studio or some technician doesn't really know what he or she is doing, then still try to give it the best you can. It's not going to be perfect. What I really do is enjoy the hell out of working in trust-based environments. Then the bouncing information back and forth becomes much easier because there's no ego and there's no insecurity in there, and there's always a budget problem. We all know that these things work like that, and then you can together construct the best out of everybody's qualities. Yeah.
We're talking about making the best of it. I think you have all worked on film soundtracks, and a lot of our audience at Private Kitchen is film composers. They work with sometimes like crazy deadlines and changes that happen to the film, maybe directors or producers that want things differently. So they might have like prepared perfectly for a session, but then they got all these last minute changes. Have things like that happened to you in sessions?
Commercials more than movie scores, to be honest.
And Marieke?
Yeah, that happens all the time. We get hired in sometimes a night before the premiere, more or less. It happens a lot. Sometimes you have been working in the studio for a day and then they didn't use the track. We just hired for another session to repair all those things. So it's the composer's risk.
Yeah.
last minute, it doesn't matter. We're just doing our job, what is asked. And yes, sometimes it was written the night before or the morning before or the hour before, and it still had to be printed, and then we get it on the stand. But that's fine. I mean, that's usually very experienced composers, and it's more difficult when composers experiment in the studio. We did that the other day. It was very nice because the composer wanted to try a lot of things. So that takes a lot more time, when there have to be discussions about notes. So when there's a deadline, you have no time to get the last cues recorded. It just has to be right on paper, and then we play it and it's done. And it can be in the film.
One more thing about sessions, maybe it's a difficult question, but are there situations where it's not a good idea to hire a live musician?
When it's totally different music, house music or something. My son, he does actually what you do, Ivo.
Yeah.
Dance, EDM, and there's almost never a saxophone in it.
No.
Now, we are supposed to do something sometime with each other. It almost never happens.
No.
It's totally different music. In the 80s, it was all saxophone solos,
Yeah.
But Allard, also in the 80s, the drum computers came in, the Lin drum computers and these things, and the drummers and the percussionists were kicked out. And now we're all coming back with hybrid situation. Did sessions for a fantastic guy, who's 25, and I hope he becomes a big boy. And he's crazy about Phil Collins. And then I did some voodoo, like organic percussion for him, and he was all freaked out about it. And then I realized that, when Phil Collins and that style was at its biggest, he wasn't even born yet, and they had never had a chance to live in a world where obviously that music that they love, good taste, wonderful, were all played by, the horns and strings. Everybody was live musicians. I do see it, becoming more hybrid. There's a DJ duo that I now do things for, they have some real strings, but they also want to keep some plastic phony synthesizer sounds that you could also use as strings. If the taste is right, then some decent music comes out of it. But if it's just, to save money, to just use samples or to just drum computers, the music should basically dictate what you want and what you don't want.
There's usually a lot of, ignorance. People don't know now what real strings sound like. When we play a session in a studio, then we have the producer and the composer and the singer, for example, sit with us in the room when we play, just for them to experience the real sound, the difference, sitting in that room, hearing the 4 or 10 or 17 strings at the same time playing. They're blown away. They have no idea. So I feel a lot of urge to educate in that. And I still have a little idea to have all the MIDI strings that are in the tunes, for example, in the NOS 8 o'clock journal, to replay it with real strings. So you can hear the difference in sound.
Marieke, what do you think of the pa-pa-da-da-da-da?
Well, that's,
We did this as a tune with a television show. We had to play that as a tune. Of course, I said, it's not going to work. And it didn't. Because everybody said, what's happening to the saxophone? Yeah, he's playing it.
We've gotten used to the plastic.
Yeah. And that's very dangerous with demos.
Do you know that the tune of Nieuwsuur has been changed from real strings to MIDI strings?
Oh no! So,
why?
Well, probably some rights thing or money that costs too much. I don't know. I do
know that in especially in like the big Hollywood scores, they are often hybrids. So they have real orchestras, but also add sampled strings to get an even bigger sound. And of
Happens
course, these
a lot.
soundtracks, they don't sound like a classical orchestra. It's like a sound on its own.
Yeah.
Does that happen with Dutch film scores? Are you aware of that, Marieke?
Film scores, not so much. Yeah, but it happens a lot with songs and stuff. Yeah, well, that's a choice, and usually a choice for money. And then I actually play a lot worse. So you can hear it's a real violin. So I play a little bit out of tune, a little bit sharp, and
to give it the human
make it
touch.
sound like you're gonna hear a real violin now.
Yeah.